Hi, I'm Richie Zellon, and in this lesson we are going to learn about the seldom explored world of Diads. I'm sure you're well aware of triads, which are three-note chords. Well, a Diad is simply a two-note chord, and because they don't require much effort to play, with just a little insight, you can use them to improvise melodic lines over any set of changes. What's cool is that you can even do some two-note pull-offs and hammer-ons. Because they consist of only two notes, they produce a very light texture. This means that they are also ideal for comping in a busy setting, such as when you're sharing the harmony with a keyboard player and he hogs the changes with those heavy two-handed voicings. As a vehicle to explore the use of Diads, I've chosen the changes to My Funny Valentine, which I'm sure most of you are somewhat familiar with. And if not, don't worry, this will be a good opportunity for you to learn it as I will share the changes with you. So what I'm going to do first is improvise over these changes using Diads for the most part. This will give you a good idea of what they sound like in the setting of a trio with just a bass player and a drummer. Now, before I do so, I want you to know that a Diad can be almost any interval or combination of intervals. In this lesson, we are going to concentrate on thirds. However, in the solo I'm going to play, I will occasionally play a few other intervals such as fourths and sixths. Again, I will try to confine the solo primarily to Diads and thirds so you can get an idea of how they sound against the changes. After this, I will explain what I did over each chord change, and I will show you how to build several Diad rows so you can start doing the same. Here it goes. Okay, let's get started. The first thing you should be aware of is that the progression is in C minor. This is based on the C natural minor or Aeolian mode. Therefore, the great majority of triad rows we are going to employ are based on the various modes derived from the C natural minor. This means that they all have the same identical notes, and to safely use them, you just need to be aware of where the avoid notes reside within each mode's diad row. So to better understand this, first let me show you how to build the C natural minor diad row. So above my guitar you see a staff with 8 rows of diads. And you see a listing, the first one being the C Aeolian, and below you see the related modes. All of these contain the same notes in a different order. That's why we call them modes. They're different modes of the C Aeolian or natural minor scale. So I'm going to start out by showing you how this works. And I'm going to start building a scale starting on the first fret, so we cover the full length of the fretboard. And I'm going to start with C here on the second string. And this is the Aeolian mode. Minor third, so I played root, 2, minor third, the fourth, the fifth, the flatted sixth, the flatted seventh, and here's the octave. Now I'm going to harmonize that note on the second string with a note on the third string, which is also a part of this scale. And that's where we get our diads in thirds. So that's the scale in 2 notes. And notice that in this diagram, we have the 7 pairs of notes and their function within the scale. And we're starting off with the flatted 6 on the third string and the root on the first string. And notice that there's an asterisk right before it. That means that all the ones that have an asterisk contain what we call an avoid note. And this is a note that usually can clash with the chord in the background that is derived from this scale. So we have to use it carefully. We normally use it as a passing diad. That means we can't rest on it. So I'm going to give you a few examples of how to use this. So right off the bat, this starts on a diad with an avoid note on the very first one. Then we have it again up here. If we were to use this one here, we want to use it probably as a passing diad between the previous one here, which is the fifth one in this row, and we would go. But we don't want to go and rest on that, because that's where we're going to clash. So remember, the ones with avoid notes have to be used as passing diads. Now, there's all sorts of interesting things that we can do with these, and you'll notice that I'm doing it between the second and third string. And that is the only place on the guitar where we have that natural interval of a third. Everything else is fourths. But this interval of a third allows us to do some interesting things. And this is where it's really easy to perform like a hammer-on from one diad to the next. Here I'm going from the second diad to the third using a hammer-on. And I can also do a pull-off. And consequently, I can go just pull-offs, and hammer-ons. I can slide into the next one, and I can do all sorts of cool things that I normally just do with one single string. Now I can do them with two strings. Okay, once you get these simple Diads down, if you want to take this to the next step, I recommend a couple of video lessons that I did in the past. It's under the name George Benson's Octaves on Steroids. And in those two lessons, there's a part 1 and a part 2, I teach you how to incorporate the Diads with octaves, which is something Benson really pioneered after being influenced by Wes Montgomery's classic octaves. And for example, if you have these Diads, what he would do is he adds the octave below the Diads. So you can learn a lot from this, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, so the first scale here, or Diad row that we looked at, is going to be used in My Funny Valentine every time we're playing over the C minor chord, okay? The next one we have in this list is the D Locrian, and the notes are identical. You're not learning anything new in terms of the notes you're applying here. What we are learning new and what we have to work on is understand the function of the notes. And you have here a description of what is taking place in every pair of notes. So this one here starts with the flat 5 on top and the flatted 7 in the bottom. So that's our chord, this D minor 7 flat 5. So here in the Locrian we have the avoid note in the third Diad, which is here, has the flat 2 in it, and then we have it again here in the fifth Diad. Now it's on the third string, the flat 2. So those are our passing Diads in the Locrian. The third one that we have is the E flat Ionian, and we're going to use this one every time we play over the E flat major 7, and that's the chord that first comes up during the B section in My Funny Valentine. So this one also, right off the bat, starts with an avoid note, has the 4th here, which clashes with the chord, so we got to be careful with that one. Okay, so that's the Ionian. Then we have the F Dorian. This one starts with the 5th on the 2nd string and the flat 3. Then we have the 6 here, which is considered an avoid note for the most part when playing the Dorian, because it creates a tritone with the minor 3rd. It makes it sound like the dominant. So we usually don't use that, especially when we're using the Dorian as part of a 2 minor to 5/7 cadence, okay? So then again, the 4th Diad also has the passing tone in it. Okay, the next one is the A flat Lydian. And the Lydian has no avoid notes in it, so you're safe there. And finally, we have the B flat Mixolydian. And this chord comes up shortly before going into the B section of the My Funny Valentine. And it's, and here, on this third diad, we have an avoid note. We have the fourth of B flat in there, which is E flat on the second string. So that's the one we got to be careful with here. Then we have, this one's okay. And this one we have to be careful with, okay? The fifth one in the B flat row, the B flat Mixolydian row. This also has the fourth of the B flat, which is an E flat. So we're ready to move on to a different scale, which is not one of the modes of the C minor Aeolian, and I'm talking about the G super Locrian, which you now have on the screen. And here we have to learn a new row, and it goes like this. And that's also known as the altered scale. It's a tricky one, but it's very useful. And we're going to use this for the G7 alt chord, the G7 flat 9, that always resolves to that C minor. And this has like a whole tone portion in it here. Exploit the hammer-ons and pull-offs very nicely here. And we're ready to move on to the final chord, and this one is another one that we have to learn. And I'm referring to the F Lydian flat 7, which we use over the F7 sharp 11 in My Funny Valentine. And this one goes like this. This one has that whole tone portion up here, starting at the 8th fret. Well, that pretty much sums it up. If you enjoyed this lesson, please be sure to subscribe to the Jazz Guitar channel and kindly leave me a comment. See you soon.